He celebrates these last tours of the bard in both song and in poetry. Before considering the Galloway tours, however, it's important to see Robert Burns and his writings in proper historical context. For to understand the man and his works, the background history of the 18th century has got to be our starting point.
The 1790s were a period of tumultuous upheaval dominated by the ideals of the French Revolution. Public displays of loyalty to King George III were ordered from every corner of Britain from December 1792. Burns, a radical poet, found himself investigated by the excise for his support of the pro-democratic group, the Friends of the People. In February 1793, Britain went to war with France. Having first welcomed the demise of tyranny in France, Pitt's government now feared that French Jacobin ideals of liberty and of democracy would lead to a French-styled rebellion here in Britain. Radicals of the period were hunted and prosecuted under the oppressive sedition laws. Fyche Palmer was sentenced to transportation to Botany Bay in September 1793, and Thomas Muir, who was dragged in chains through Greathouse of Fleet on his way to Edinburgh, was also sentenced to transportation to Australia. Burns himself had been well known to take part in the various debates of the Enlightenment during this period and contributed many poems and songs either anonymously or pseudonymously to newspapers such as the Edinburgh Gazetteer. It is with this background, aware that Burns had been chastised by the excise, that we begin the first Galloway tour in 1793. On the first Galloway tour, the poet was accompanied by his friend John Syme, stamp collector Johnny from Dumfries. Syme left an account of the tour for James Curry, Burns' first biographer. The two travellers left Dumfries on 27th July 1793 and travelled on Sheltie ponies to their first destination, Parton House. It was described by Syme as a beautiful situation on the banks of Loch Dee. Parton lies several miles south of New Galloway village. They dined with the Glendinning family, sometimes pronounced with the Welsh as Glendinwin. Syme's letter goes on, "In the evening we walked out and viewed the alpine scenery around. This was classic ground for Burns. He viewed the highest hill that rises o'er the source of Dee, and would have stayed till the passing spirit appeared, had we not resolved to reach Kenmure that night. The old house at Parton was knocked down last century, and the modern house, owned by Sir Eric Hunter Blair, was built in the 1950s. The photograph claiming to be Parton House in the book Burns Lore of Dumfries and Galloway shows the old servant stables at Parton, at the house visited by the bard. It was the 27th of July 1793, the same evening when the two travellers arrived at the Gordons' beautiful castle at Kenmure. Sadly, it is now in ruins. Syme goes on, "We arrived as the Gordons were sitting down to supper. The castle, an old building, stands on a large natural moat, and in front the Ken winds for several miles. We spent 3 days with the Gordons, whose hospitality is of a polished and endearing kind. Syme left no account of poetry recited or songs sung by the bard while at Kenmure, but as he loved to perform his work, we can rest assured he would have sang at least one of his classic songs, such as Ye Banks and Braes.